Welcome to Unheard, where the darkest secrets finally find their voice. These are real confessions from real people who need to be heard. Today's story comes from someone who made a choice that destroyed everything. Their identity will remain forever anonymous, but their truth needs to be told. I killed a man. Not with my hands, not with a weapon, but with a betrayal so deep, so unforgivable, that it stopped his heart in an instant. He trusted me like a son. Today, for the first time in 3 years, I'm going to tell you exactly how I destroyed him, his family, and everything he built. This is my confession, and I can never reveal who I am. I need you to understand something before I go any further. What I did changed everything. It didn't just ruin my life, it ended his. It left his wife a widow, his children fatherless, and turned a thriving company into nothing but bankruptcy papers and broken dreams. Every single day, I wake up knowing that a good man is dead because of me. 3 years ago, I was nobody special. Just another design engineer at a small but growing tech company. I was drowning in student loans and living paycheck to paycheck in a studio apartment that smelled like mold. My girlfriend had just left me because I couldn't even afford to take her out for dinner anymore. My mother was battling cancer, and the medical bills were crushing my family. I felt like I was suffocating under the weight of my own failures. But my boss, he saw something in me that I couldn't see in myself. He hired me when no one else would, gave me a chance when I was desperate. He was one of those rare bosses who actually cared about his employees. He knew everyone's names, remembered our birthdays, asked about our families. When my mom got sick, he personally called me into his office and told me to take all the time I needed. He even helped me find resources for her treatment. The company was his life's work. We specialized in developing cutting-edge water purification systems for disaster relief. We were working on technology that could literally save lives in crisis situations. He had poured his heart, his savings, his entire soul into this company. He used to tell us that we weren't just building products. We were building hope for people who had lost everything. I should have been grateful. I should have been loyal. Instead, I became the cancer that killed him. It started with a phone call on a Tuesday morning in March. I was in the break room, stirring sugar into my coffee, when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer it, but something made me pick up. The voice on the other end was smooth, professional. A woman from our biggest competitor. They were the corporate giant that my boss was fighting against, the company that was trying to squeeze us out of every contract, every opportunity. Why would they be calling me? I think there's been a mistake, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. No mistake. We've been watching your work. We're impressed. Very impressed. We'd like to make you an offer. I hung up immediately. My hands were shaking. I knew I should have told my boss right away. Should have reported the call. But something stopped me. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was desperation. Maybe it was the devil himself whispering in my ear. She called back the next day, and the day after that. Each time the offer got bigger. They weren't just offering me a job. They were offering me a way out of my financial hell. $60,000 just to share some basic information about our current projects. Nothing classified, she said. Nothing that would really hurt anyone. Just some general insights, she would say in her smooth voice. Market research, really. You'd be doing consulting work. $60,000. That was more money than I'd ever seen in my life. It was enough to pay off my student loans, help with my mom's medical bills, maybe even get my life back on track. All I had to do was share some harmless information about our projects. But I knew it wasn't harmless. I knew exactly what they wanted, and I knew exactly what it would do to my boss and the company. Still, I found myself listening. Still, I found myself considering it. The breaking point came on a Friday evening in April. I was working late, alone in the office, when I got a call from the hospital. My mom had taken a turn for the worse. They needed to start an experimental treatment immediately, but our insurance wouldn't cover it. The cost was astronomical. Without it, the doctors said she might not make it through the summer. I sat there in that empty office, surrounded by the blueprints and prototypes that my boss had trusted me with, and I made the worst decision of my life. I called her back. "I'm listening," I said. The meeting was set for the following Monday at a coffee shop downtown. She was exactly what I expected, polished and professional in her expensive suit. She slid a briefcase across the table to me like we were in some kind of spy movie. "What we need is simple," she said, sipping her latte like we were discussing the weather. "Your company is about to finalize the blueprint for your revolutionary new system. We know it's going to change everything. We just need to see those blueprints before they hit the market." She was talking about my boss's masterpiece. He'd been working on it for 2 years, pouring every ounce of his genius into creating a water purification system that could work anywhere, anytime, using minimal power, and producing clean water faster than anything else on the market. It was going to make our company a major player in the industry. It was going to secure our future. "I can't," I whispered. 75,000, she said without missing a beat. "Cash. Today." I stared at the briefcase. Inside was more money than I'd ever seen, enough to save my mother's life, enough to change everything. "The blueprints are in our secure server," I said, my voice sounding like it was coming from someone else. "I'd need to access them after hours." "We can wait," she said with a smile that made my skin crawl. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, knowing I was about to cross a line I could never uncross. I thought about my boss, about how he'd trusted me, believed in me, treated me like family. I thought about the other employees, good people with families and dreams of their own. I thought about all the people in crisis zones around the world who were counting on us to develop technology that could save their lives. But then I thought about my mom, lying in that hospital bed, and I made my choice. Monday night, I stayed late at the office again. By 9 p.m., the building was empty except for security. I knew the guards' routine. I knew exactly how long I had. My hands were trembling as I logged into the secure server and pulled up the files. Everything was there, every detail, every specification, every innovation that my boss had spent 2 years perfecting. The complete blueprints for a system that would revolutionize disaster relief. I copied everything onto an encrypted drive, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. As I transferred the files, I kept telling myself I was saving my mother's life. I was doing what any son would do. I was being practical, being smart. These were just blueprints, just information. It wasn't like I was stealing physical property. But deep down, I knew I was stealing something much more valuable than money. I was stealing my boss's dreams. I was stealing the company's future. I was stealing hope from people I'd never meet who were depending on our technology to survive disasters. The transfer finished at 11:47 p.m. I sat there for a moment, staring at the small drive in my hand. Everything my boss had worked for, reduced to a piece of plastic and metal no bigger than my thumb. I could still stop. I could delete the files, throw away the drive, and pretend none of this ever happened. Instead, I put the drive in my pocket and walked out of the building. The next morning, I met her at the same coffee shop. She was already there, sitting at a corner table with another briefcase. I sat down across from her, feeling like I was floating outside my own body. "Do you have it?" she asked. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the drive. The moment I placed it on the table, I knew there was no going back. She smiled and slid the briefcase toward me. "Pleasure doing business with you." I opened the briefcase just enough to see the money inside. $75,000 in cash, just like she'd promised. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like death. I took the money and left without saying another word. The entire drive home, I kept the briefcase on the passenger seat, glancing at it like it might explode. By the time I got to my apartment, I was physically sick. I spent the rest of the day throwing up, my body rejecting what my mind had done. But the money was real. The money could save my mother. I told myself that was all that mattered. For 2 weeks, I went to work every day, pretending nothing had changed. I smiled at my boss, participated in meetings, acted like I was still the loyal employee he thought I was. Every interaction felt like a knife in my chest, but I kept telling myself it would all be worth it when my mom got better. The call came on a Thursday morning. I was at my desk, reviewing some routine maintenance reports, when our boss's secretary rushed into the engineering department. "Has anyone seen the news?" she asked, her voice shaking. I looked up to see her holding her phone, her face pale as paper. My stomach dropped before I even knew why. "The competitor just announced their new system," she said. It's identical to ours." The room went completely silent. I felt like I was falling through the floor. Around me, my coworkers were pulling up the announcement on their computers, their faces shifting from confusion to horror as they realized what this meant. "That's impossible," someone said. "Our system is proprietary. We haven't even filed the patents yet." But I knew it wasn't impossible. I knew exactly how it had happened. And I knew that in about 30 seconds, my boss was going to find out that his life's work had been stolen. I heard his footsteps before I saw him. Heavy, urgent footsteps coming down the hallway toward our department. When he appeared in the doorway, I barely recognized him. His usually neat hair was disheveled, his face was red, and his eyes were wild with panic and rage. "Everyone out," he said, his voice barely controlled. "Now!" The department emptied in seconds, leaving just him and me. He closed the door behind him and turned to face me, and I knew. Somehow he already knew. "The server logs show someone accessed the files Monday night at 11:30 p.m., he said, his voice getting quieter and more dangerous with each word. "Your keycard was used to enter the building at 9:15 p.m. that night. You were the only one here." I opened my mouth to deny it, to lie, to say anything that might make this go away, but nothing came out. I just sat there, staring at the man who had been like a father to me, watching his heart break in real time. "Why?" he whispered. That single word contained everything. 20 years of building his company, 2 years of perfecting his revolutionary system, the trust he'd placed in me, the future he'd planned for all of us. All of it reduced to one simple question. Why? I should have confessed everything right then. I should have told him about my mother, about the money, about how desperate I'd been. I should have fallen to my knees and begged for his forgiveness. Instead, I did the worst thing possible. I lied. "I don't know what you're talking about," I said. He stared at me for a long moment, and I watched something die in his eyes. It was like watching a light go out forever. "Get out," he said. "Get out of my building. Get out of my sight. You're fired." I stood up on shaking legs and walked toward the door. Just as I reached for the handle, he spoke again. "I trusted you," he said, his voice breaking. "I trusted you like my own son. I gave you everything. How could you do this to me? How could you destroy everything I've built?" I turned around to see him clutching his chest, his face gray with pain. Not just emotional pain, physical pain. I said his name, taking a step toward him. "Don't," he gasped, holding up his hand. "Don't you dare come near me." He was struggling to breathe now, his hand pressed against his chest, his eyes wide with shock and agony. I realized what was happening, but I was frozen in place, watching the man I'd betrayed fighting for his life. "Someone help!" I finally screamed, running toward him. "Help!" But it was too late. He collapsed to the floor right there in front of me, his body convulsing once before going completely still. The man who had trusted me, who had believed in me, who had treated me like family, was dead. And I had killed him. The paramedics arrived within minutes, but there was nothing they could do. "Massive cardiac arrest," they said. The stress and shock had been too much for his heart. At 52 years old, he was gone, leaving behind a wife, 2 teenage children, and a company that would never recover from his death. I was escorted out of the building by security that day and never went back. Within a week, the story broke in the industry publications. Our company's proprietary technology had been stolen and sold to their biggest competitor. The company's value plummeted overnight. Without his leadership and without their revolutionary technology, they couldn't compete. Within 6 months, they were forced to declare bankruptcy. His wife lost everything. The company stock she owned became worthless. The life insurance wasn't enough to cover their debts. She had to sell their house, take the kids out of private school, and move in with her sister. The last I heard, she was working 2 jobs just to make ends meet. Their son was supposed to start college that fall. Instead, he's working at a grocery store, trying to help support the family. Their daughter was a sophomore in high school when her father died. She struggled with depression and anxiety ever since, according to the few news articles I've found about the family. I destroyed them all. An entire family, an entire company. Dozens of employees who lost their jobs, all for money that I used to save my mother's life. And you know what the cruelest part is? My mother died anyway. The experimental treatment didn't work. The $75,000 I sold my soul for bought her 3 extra months of pain and suffering before the cancer took her. 3 months during which I couldn't even look her in the eye because I knew what I'd done to get the money for her treatment. She died never knowing that her son had become a murderer. I've spent the last 3 years living with this secret, and it's been eating me alive. I moved across the country, changed my identity, tried to start over, but you can't outrun what you've done. Every job I've taken, I've quit within months because I can't stand the trust my employers place in me. Every relationship I've tried to build has crumbled because I can't be honest about who I really am. I haven't slept a full night since he died. I see his face every time I close my eyes. The moment when he realized what I'd done. The moment when his heart stopped beating. I hear his voice asking me why. And I still don't have a good answer. I was desperate, yes. I was scared for my mother, yes. But plenty of people face desperate situations without betraying the people who care about them. Plenty of people find other ways to solve their problems. I chose the easy way, the evil way, and a good man died because of it. I know some of you watching this might think I'm being too hard on myself. You might think that I didn't actually kill him, that his heart attack was just a coincidence. But I know better. I know that the shock of discovering my betrayal is what stopped his heart. I know that if I hadn't stolen those blueprints, if I hadn't sold out his company, he would still be alive today. He'd still be developing technology to help people in crisis. He'd still be watching his children graduate, get married, have families of their own. He'd still be holding his wife's hand and planning for retirement. Instead, he's dead, and his family is broken, and it's all because of me. The worst part is that I can't even honor his memory properly. I can't attend memorial services or contribute to scholarship funds in his name, because I'm the reason those funds exist. I can't reach out to his family to apologize, because my apology would only remind them of their pain. I can't do anything except carry this guilt and try to find some way to make amends. That's why I'm finally speaking out. I'm sharing this nightmare because I can't stay silent anymore. Someone out there might be standing at the same crossroads I faced. Someone might be getting that phone call, hearing that offer, thinking they have no other choice. If that's you, I'm begging you to stop. I'm begging you to find another way. Whatever you think you'll gain from betrayal isn't worth the cost. The money won't bring you peace. The temporary solution to your problems will create permanent damage to your soul. I thought I was being smart, being practical. I thought I was doing what I had to do to save my mother. But I was just being a coward. I was taking the easy way out, and it cost a good man his life. He deserved better than me. His family deserved better. His employees deserved better. The people around the world who could have been helped by his technology deserved better. I can't bring him back. I can't undo what I did. I can't repair the damage I caused to his family or his company. All I can do is live with the consequences of my actions and hope that by sharing this story, I might prevent someone else from making the same terrible choice. If you're facing a desperate situation, if you're drowning in debt or family problems or any other crisis, please find help. Talk to a counselor, reach out to family, look into assistance programs, do whatever you have to do. But don't betray the people who trust you. Don't compromise your integrity for money. Don't become what I became. Because once you cross that line, once you become someone who betrays trust for personal gain, there's no coming back. You'll carry that guilt for the rest of your life, and it will poison everything you touch. The money will never be worth it. The temporary relief will never justify the permanent damage. I destroyed a good man's life for $75,000. I destroyed his family, his company, his legacy. I destroyed dozens of other lives in the process. And for what? 3 extra months with my dying mother, months that were tainted by the knowledge of what I'd done to pay for them. Don't make my mistake. Don't let desperation turn you into someone you can't live with. Find another way. There's always another way, even when it doesn't feel like it. Because the alternative is living like me. Anonymous, alone, carrying a secret that grows heavier every single day. Knowing that somewhere out there, children are growing up without their father because of what you did. Knowing that a woman is working 2 jobs to survive because you destroyed her husband's company. Knowing that technology that could have saved lives will never be developed because you sold it to the highest bidder. This is my confession. This is my warning. This is my plea to anyone who might be standing where I once stood, staring at a choice between right and wrong. Choose right. Please. Choose right. Because living with the wrong choice isn't really living at all. It's just existing in a prison of your own making, and there's no sentence long enough to pay for what you've done. If this story moved you, please share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to Unheard. Your support gives voice to those who thought they'd never be heard. And if you have a confession that's been weighing on your heart, if you have a truth that needs to be told, send it to unheardchannel@gmail.com. Your story could be the next one we share, always keeping your identity completely anonymous. Sometimes the only way to heal is to be heard.